elegance and class. If you're not familiar with Diahnn Caroll, she was the first Black woman to star in a TV show in a role that wasn't a maid or mammy in 1968. So she became a very influential role model for Black women. In every role Diahnn Caroll played in, she was always giving bougie, classy, elegant. She was really the original rich auntie. So what can we learn from Diahnn Caroll about elegance and class? What can we learn from her legacy? It can be so easy to lose sight of your identity in a world that is constantly telling you who to be. What I admire about Diahnn Caroll is she did not accept what society said Black women should be or how Black women should act. She carved her own path and made her own way. She really created her own narrative at a time when Black women were only portrayed as the help.
Diahnn Caroll was called a professional virgin born. Diahnn was born to a subway conductor and a nurse, and although her life was pretty strict, it also was very, very privileged and spoiled. And when I say spoiled, I mean princess treatment through and through. She wore the finest clothes. Look at the drip. Look at the drip. Her hair was always laid. She spoke eloquently. She attended a performing arts high school. Her parents got her in dancing and singing classes. And baby was modeling for magazines like Ebony and Jet at the age of 15. You just wasn't fucking with her. Mama and daddy emphasized that she was a princess, and she believed it. So she walked around with the air of what some would identify as confidence, others arrogance. Females at her high school couldn't stand her. She didn't drink, she didn't smoke, wasn't sleeping around, and so they just basically found a reason to jump poor Diahnn. But that didn't stop her. Once she got into the show business, they ate up her beautiful mixture of talent, aesthetic, and put togetherness. She wasn't in the industry long before she was winning singing competitions similar to like an American Idol today and being offered gigs. One being a performance gig at Manhattan's Cafe Society. Cafe Society was America's first integrated nightclub, and it broke a lot of racial norms, but don't get it twisted. This was a high clientele nightclub, no brokies. And the club required a top-of-the-line, beautiful, sensual performer. People like Lena Horne and Dorothy Dandridge, which performed there before Diahnn. See, the issue is Diahnn was beautiful. She had a beautiful voice, but again, the put-togetherness became an issue for her because she was kind of boring as a performer. She didn't have a very sensual side. She wasn't seductive. She wasn't entertaining to the crowd like a Lena Horne or Dorothy Dandridge. You know, she just sang her song innocently and beautifully and went on by her business. This image preceded her in her dating life as well. She went on a date with Sammy Davis Jr. and knew after that first date this wasn't gonna work out. He was this big life of the party star, used to getting his way with women, and Diahnn wasn't having it at all.
He was very strange when it came to women. He said, there's one thing about Diahnn that I will always hold against her. I like her anyway, but she's really a professional virgin, and they're a bore. I accepted that, and I said to him, I take it as a compliment. I thank you very much, because there are a lot of other things that could happen to a young woman, I think, in Los Angeles that could be much worse than having that reputation. I liked it.
Sammy did become a good friend, though, introducing her to other people within the industry, you know, helping her get some connects. One of the people he introduced her to was the biggest movie star of the time, Marlon Brando, and he had a crush on little Diahnn.
He gave me a little whack on the rear end, and I turned around and I gave him a whack right across his jaw.
Diahnn was like, I am not about to be Hollywood's plate to be passed around, which was very contrary to, you know, the industry at that time. I guess the industry at any time, you know, where sex and dating is very liberal. But there was one that got in, and that was Sidney Poitier. And oh my God, the drama that happened there. Come back for part 2.
Let me tell you about one of the original trailblazers, Diahnn Caroll. She wasn't just glamorous, she was groundbreaking. Did you know she was the first Black woman to star in a non-stereotypical role on TV as Julia Baker in Julia back in 1968? That's right. She didn't play a maid or a servant. She was a nurse, a widow, and a single mom showing Black women in a new light. But here's something you might not know. Diahnn grew up in Harlem and was classically trained as a singer before she ever graced our screens. Her journey wasn't easy. She faced criticism from both Hollywood and the Black community. Forget this. Being too glamorous and not representing reality. Yet, she said, I like to think I opened doors for other women, although that wasn't my original intention. She just wanted to be great. And get this, she was also a fashion icon, once called the Black Jackie Kennedy. But behind the fame, Diahnn had her struggles. She was married 4 times and raised her daughter while balancing a tough career. She knew the real fight wasn't just breaking into Hollywood, but staying authentic to herself. Sounds familiar, don't it? She even beat breast cancer. Her resilience proves why she's the epitome of an unstoppable black woman. Now, I want to hear from you. What's your favorite Diahnn Caroll moment? Drop it in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and follow for more inspiring stories about the women who've changed the game. You have to keep pushing. It doesn't end until your last breath.
JFK wasn't the only boy that felt entitled to some Diahnn. Apparently Marlon did too. Then again, who didn't Marlon feel entitled to? Let's talk about it. So it's the early 1950s, and of course everybody wants a piece of the hottest young starlet rising in Hollywood right now because, fucking look at the material. Of course they do. But it's actually Sammy Davis Jr. who scores the first date with Diahnn, not Marlon. And according to Diahnn, it only took one date with him to know that there would not be a second one. Sammy wanted one thing, and when he found out that Diahnn was not giving that thing up, he called her a professional bore and a professional virgin, to which she said, "Thank you. I'll take being a professional bore over being a professional whore." Hey, we respect black women's choice to their bodily autonomy no matter what route they take. But I gotta respect Diahnn for standing on business. But just because there was no romantic chemistry between the two didn't mean that they had bad blood. In fact, Sammy would become Diann's biggest cheerleader, mentor, and friend, and tried to do everything he could to help her career along. He invited her to big shows, introduced her to his colleagues, and even invited her to top industry parties. And it was at one of these parties that Sammy had a little surprise for her because someone wanted to meet her. And it's at one of these parties that Sammy tells Diahnn, "Hey, I have a friend that wants to meet you." And Diahnn is like, "Who is it?" And he's like, "Just come with me." So they go to the back, and it's none other than Mr. Godfather himself, ready to make Diahnn an offer she can't refuse. Well, of course, Diahnn is excited because Marlon is the hottest ticket in Hollywood right now, and that's where she's trying to get. So when he invites her to dinner, of course, she says yes. And so him and a couple of his friends all go out on a double date to a club. And I guess this must have gone very well because Marlon decided after they left the club that he was going to get him a piece of that and smacked her on her ass, to which Diahnn Caroll returned the favor by smacking him upside his head. Diahnn does not explain in her interview exactly what happened after this transpired, but I just feel like she might have cussed him out. She just gives me those vibes. I mean, that's the face of I'm cute, but don't play with me. You know what I'm saying? Either way, Diahnn goes home, and the next day she receives a box full of books. And these books are self-help guides and manuals on things like singing, dancing, elocution, and just generally like the guides to how to be a good entertainer. And they come with a note from Marlon and are basically his way of apologizing to Diahnn. Not long after receiving the olive branch, Diahnn got a call from Marlon, who asked if she had received the books, to which she said yes. And then he told her, "Diahnn, I want you to pack your bags, get on the first thing smoking back to New York, and really study the craft of how to be an actress. You are too good for this town." To which Diahnn always credited him as really looking out for her and giving her some of the best advice in her career. And from that moment on, they were good friends and remained friends throughout the rest of their lives. Let's talk about the time that Diahnn Caroll was not invited to a casting party for a show that she was a part of because she was too classy. Yes, in 1962, Diahnn Caroll was a part of a Broadway production of which she was the star of the production. This was an interracial production that Diahnn Caroll was a part of, and a wealthy fan of the show decided that she was going to throw a sort of casting party for everyone because she wanted to meet everybody. So yes, the lady did throw her party. However, she made it a pointed effort to not invite Diahnn. But not only did she not invite Diahnn, she made sure that Diahnn knew it. She instructed the director of the show to tell Diahnn that she was not invited and why she was not invited. And this is what he said, because, she just had to really make sure that she was taken down a peg. This is what it is to be a black woman in this country. So, Diahnn was told by the director of the show that she was not invited to the party because classy black women like her did not exist, and it would confuse her children to see a black person being so elegant and classy. Furthermore, she said that she knew that Diahnn was a phony because there were no black people like that. She was actually an invention of the director of the show. He had trained like she was a puppy, to walk and talk and dress and exude this elegance and this stage presence. So she knew that Diahnn was, quote unquote, not a real person, and that it would confuse her kids for someone like Diahnn to be in their presence. This supposed, I don't know, mockery of what black people actually are: an elegant, classy, articulate, talented black woman. So yes, Diahnn Caroll was not invited to a party, and further, she was not invited because she was classy and black people could not be classy. Furthermore, not only was she not naturally classy, she was an invention, according to this woman, of the director who trained her to be this classy and elegant. And her kids just couldn't see that. Humanizing black people, can't have that in my household. According to Diahnn, she said this woman is possibly insane, but I didn't think anything of it because, I mean, why would she? She's Diahnn fucking Caroll, and who are you? A footnote in the history of Diahnn Caroll.